Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I'd like to talk with y'all about some thriller and horror books that I'd like to see adapted. And I am in a new filming location in our living room. Stacy is a little bit under the weather. She has booted me from the room, so this is what you get. But yeah, today, very simple idea. I've got some thriller and horror books by many different authors that I would like to see adapted into either movies or TV shows or something. I think it would be interesting. For most of these, I'm not quite sure if someone would be able to pull it off well enough, but I'd still like to see it well done. Will it ever happen? Maybe some of these. I think some of these would actually make really good movies. A lot of these will probably never get made, but oh well. But yeah, that's all I got. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first one I got is just an author in general that I think probably will get something made eventually because he is a very not only prolific thriller author, but also just very popular. So I could see him eventually down the road getting some kind of adaptation. And that would be Riley Sager. And I'm holding up The House Across the Lake. This is my favorite Riley Sager book of all time. I think he's written like 9 or so books. Definitely my favorite. And this is the one that I would most like to see get adapted. And I know this book is very polarizing, but I think it could actually make a really good kind of thriller horror movie. This book for me, I think is very cinematic in a way, and I think it could really work well on the big screen. So this is the one that of all of the Riley Sager books I'd like to see get adapted. But he's still got some other ones that I think would probably get adapted more than this. Like I said, this one is very polarizing, so this one probably won't get made, but I would love to see it on the big screen. Out of all of the books that I have on here, and out of all the authors, I think this one is probably the easiest one to get adapted because it's more of a sci-fi thriller and it's more realistic. So I think the budget, I think most people would want to go see this. I could see this being like a blockbuster hit, and that would be The Passengers by John Marrs. Now, John Marrs isn't one of my favorite authors, but this author, or this book, I should say, is very good. Definitely my favorite that I've read by John Marrs. And if you guys don't know, it's basically about these group of people that are in self-driving cars and they all get hacked and they're set on a collision course for each other. And very cool concept. And throughout the novel, you learn more about who these people are and the secrets that they hold. So I think this would be just a very blockbuster movie that a lot of people would love to go see. And I would love to go see it as well. The other John Marrs books that I've attempted to read, I haven't really liked, but this one really worked for me, and I think it could work really well as a movie. One of my all-time favorite horror books that I got to read last year was Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. And like with a lot of these books, I'm not exactly sure how a director or a filmmaker would make this work, but I would love to see someone attempt it. Now, it could end up being really bad or really good. Either way, I would love to see it would just be interesting to see someone else's vision for this book, because when I was reading this book, I definitely had like clear moments of like what I think the author was going for. So it would be interesting to see someone else's take on that and to see if it aligns with my own. That's kind of the fun of any, movie adaptation for a book, is just to see like, is someone else's vision close to mine? A lot of the times it isn't, and a lot of the times people hate the movie adaptations because of that, because it doesn't align with how they see the book. But yeah, I would love to see someone attempt to make this book because it's very weird and very unconventional, and again, pretty unpopular, just like with House Across the Lake. But I would love to see it done well, or at least attempted anyway. Now, an author that I think will be adapted, and I think some of his books are actually currently being worked on, because his books are not only very popular, but I think they would probably be the easiest to adapt because they're more on the realistic side. They're thrillers. I'm, of course, talking about S.A. Cosby. And the ones that I would most be interested to watch is Razorblade Tears, which I think is being adapted, if I'm not mistaken. Comment down below if you have any knowledge of that. But also Blacktop Wasteland, definitely my all-time favorite S.A. Cosby book. This one reminds me a lot of like Quentin Tarantino, my all-time favorite movie director. So I would love, in a perfect world, I'd love to see Tarantino direct this, but I doubt it. But I would just love to see this as a movie in general. But all of his books have been great, if not just fantastic. And I think all of them, or at least most of them, would make very compelling movies and or TV shows. So S.A. Cosby is definitely one to look out for. I think Razorblade Tears is being worked on. I'm not sure if it's confirmed. Comment down below if you know anything about that. This next one would be very hard to make for a lot of reasons, and I don't think it would ever get made. But would I watch it if it came out? Hell yeah, I would. That would be Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. You might be wondering, why would it be so hard to make? Well, the general idea for this book is about people eating each other. It's commercialized cannibalism. And it's very gruesome, very dark, very dystopian future. And would anybody want to make a film about this? Maybe. Would anybody put up the funding for it? I don't know. But I think it would be a very interesting movie, or even a mini series. I don't know. But I think it would obviously be very disturbing, but I just love to see what directions they go in. Because, sometimes you make an adaptation of something and you can either be very faithful or you can make a lot of changes. For this one, I could see people kind of taking this general idea and putting their own spin on it. Would it be as good as the book? I don't know. But in general, I would love to see this kind of general idea be adapted and to see how audiences would react. I would watch it for sure. A thriller author that her books are just always super fun and engaging, and I think most of her books would make very good movies or miniseries, would be Cherie LaPena. And definitely my favorite by her still is The Couple Next Door. I've read all of her books. This has been the only one that I've given 5 stars to. It's the one that I started with. And her books are always really fun and engaging, like I mentioned. But this one starts with the premise of stolen baby. And then you got to figure out who did it, what's going on, what are the parents going to do to get their baby back. I think this would be a very compelling movie. A lot of twists and turns. I think it would be a great blockbuster thriller. This next book, I think, could potentially make a very interesting mini-series. And I think the structure of it kind of lends well to a miniseries. I don't know if it would work well for a movie, but either way, I would love to see Confessions by Kanae Minato adapted into something. Like I mentioned, the structure of this book is interesting. It's a thriller mystery where every chapter you get a different POV character, and in each chapter, typically at the end, you get kind of a bombshell revelation that kind of furthers the story and the mystery. And I think it would lend well to a miniseries because you could just have 5 or 6 episodes, and each episode kind of ends with oh wait, what's happening now? So I think this would be a very fun one. And you can either, make an English adaptation or just go straight, I think it's Japanese, right? Or just have a Japanese director and just make it fully Japanese with English subtitles. Either way, I would love to see this get adapted someday. Definitely one of my favorite horror authors working now, and definitely one of my all-time favorite horror writers that I would personally love to see get adapted, but I don't think she's popular enough to warrant that, sadly enough, is Zoe Stage. Now, I love me some Zoe Stage. I've given most of her books 5 stars, especially Baby Teeth, one of my all-time favorite horror novels. I would love to see this get adapted. I think this would make a really fun horror movie. And if you guys don't know what it's essentially about a mother and a daughter. The mother has a lot of problems, a lot of health problems, and then she has a 7-year-old named Hannah, and she is just a bad little girl who wants to hurt and possibly kill her own mother. So I think that would lend really well to just a really you could go in any direction. You could make it kind of a fun, it's like a crazy horror movie about this creepy little girl, or what the book kind of does is kind of straddle that line of like, this is a really messed up situation and there's some really just messed up consequences because of this, and a lot of internal struggle with the mom. So like, you could go either way, and either way I think it would be a great time. Baby Teeth, one of my all-time favorite horror books. I think it has the potential to be a really awesome horror movie. And then a lot of her other books, Mothered, or even the sequel to Baby Teeth, or Wonderland, I think would make a really just creepy horror movie. This one has some great visuals that I still can remember to this day. I would love to see this get adapted, but just Zoe Stage in general, super underrated. Would love to see her get adapted someday. Another one of my favorite horror writers that I think would be very interesting to see get adapted would be Stephen Graham Jones. And some of his books might not lend super well because they're kind of very fever dreamy-ish and would be maybe kind of harder to adapt in that way. But some of his books are a bit more straightforward, like My Heart is a Chainsaw, which is a trilogy horror series. This is the first book, and I think getting this would just be very fun because this character loves horror movies, so you would get a lot of horror movie references, which people love the references nowadays. So I think this would work really well, and also just it's a great story with great characters and a lot of great horror elements, very gory slasher. You've also got something a little bit on the shorter side, like Night of the Mannequins. I could see this being like an episode to like a horror series where it's like a anthology series where like each episode is its different story. I could see this being like a 40-minute, 1-hour special, and it would just be a really fun time. Like this one, it's pretty messed up, but it's also kind of a black comedy in a way. So I think just Stephen Graham Jones is just, he has a lot of untapped potential for just movies. That's the word I'm trying to say. But yeah, Stephen Graham Jones, it would be fun to see him get adapted someday. Now, again, this is another horror book that I don't know how they would do it. I don't know if they would try to condense all of this into a movie or make this into a TV series or miniseries. I don't know, but either way, I would love to see Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky get adapted. And again, I love me some unpopular horror books, and this one is very divisive. You're either going to love this book, or you're going to hate it, or you're going to think like the first half was great and then the second half went off the rails. I don't care. This is one of my all-time favorite horror books, if not my favorite, and I would love to see this get adapted. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know where they would get the funding for it. I don't know who's putting up the money for this story, but it would just be very interesting to see the story come to life on screen. And yeah, that I just want to see it happen. I don't think it'll ever happen, not in my lifetime, not in anyone's lifetime, but it would be really fun. And how do I even summarize this book? Like it starts out with a little boy getting lost, and then he comes back 6 days later, a little bit different, and then he hears this voice in his head telling him to build a tree house in the woods. And it kind of goes from there. It goes into some places that you won't see coming, and a lot of people don't like it because of that, but I loved the direction it went to. I thought it was very different and very ambitious, and I know a lot of people hate it, but I would love to see it get adapted someday. And the last one I'll talk about is definitely more, it's not a straight up horror book. It's got elements of sci-fi and satire. It's got a lot of weird things happening, but I'm of course talking about Extreme Makeover by Dan Wells. And you might be wondering, oh, well, Dan Wells, what about I Am Not a Serial Killer? Well, that actually has an adaptation. It's not the best movie ever made, but I did like it. It was pretty gritty. It felt more, akin to like an old 70s horror movie. It was pretty good. Go check it out if you've read the series, or just the first book, actually. It was pretty good. But I think Extreme Makeover would make for a very interesting movie and or miniseries. If you don't know, it's basically the apocalypse that is set upon because of cosmetic products. Now, that might not make a whole lot of sense, but if you read this book, you'll figure out that this group of scientists are trying to come up with the best cosmetic products, and this one guy kind of randomly stumbles upon something that'll literally de-age you. Like you put it on and like you'll just look a lot younger and more youthful and a lot prettier and hotter. So, but it has some unintended side effects, and this book just goes completely bananas, and I love it for that, and I would love to see it get adapted and to see all of that happen on screen. That would be a lot of fun. So it's my last pick here, Extreme Makeover by Dan Wells. All right, so that is my list here of authors and books that I would love to see get adapted. Now, the most likely candidates are, like I mentioned, S.A. Cosby, very popular, becoming more and more popular, and I think Razorblade Tears is actually being worked on, if I'm not mistaken, or one of his works is. I'm not sure, but I think he's the most likely candidate. I think The Passengers makes one of the most sense here because I just could see that be like a big blockbuster movie. A lot of these other ones would just be very kind of niche horror movies, which they do get made, but I don't see it. But I would love to see these get adapted. If any of these came out, I would go see it right away or buy it on DVD. I'd do something to support it. But those are my picks here. Definitely let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my picks. Let me know if any of these have actually been adapted. I don't think so, but definitely comment that down below. Also, what are your picks for thriller and horror books that you would love to see get adapted? Comment down below and we'll chat about it. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a quick thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Stay subscribed for more content. Try to post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here. Stay tuned tomorrow when I talk about my top 31 Halloween or horror movies of all time. It's mostly going to be me talking about my top 10, but I will mention 20 other horror movies that I really like. So that'll be tomorrow for Off Topic Thursday. Every third Thursday of the month, I try to do an off-topic video. So it's spooky season, so I'm going to talk about my favorite horror movies of all time. Also, down below, check out the Bookish Drummer Discord, where we've always got tons of buddy reads and read-alongs happening all the damn time. Got my Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. And my Amazon wishlist if you'd like to go buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.